space company Vast is just a little more than a year away from the planned launch of its first commercial space station called Haven-1. I'm Will Robinson-Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. At Space Symposium, Vast brought a life-size mock-up of Haven-1 so that folks could walk around, check it out, both in literal space as well as in virtual reality, and get an opportunity to see what it will be like for future astronauts on board the actual Haven-1 itself. And who better to talk with about the Haven-1 experience and the future development of Haven-1 than the company's CEO, Max Hout.
So welcome to the Haven-1 experience. This is a one-to-one replica of the material and the dimension and everything we are building for Haven-1. As you can see, we've applied a high level of design. Our concept is design is not there for luxury. Design is there for crew cohesion, well-being, so that they can perform better when they perform the science that they will be doing on Haven-1.
Before we continue with the tour, let's pause and zoom out a bit. The Haven-1 is a spacecraft that's 4.4 meters, or about 14.5 feet in diameter, and 10.1 meters, or a little more than 33 feet in length. With its 4 solar wings extended, it generates about 13,200 watts of power. It's designed to operate in low Earth orbit for about 3 years, and it will orbit the Earth at an altitude of 425 kilometers, or roughly 229.5 nautical miles, at a 51.6 degree inclination. For comparison, the International Space Station orbits between 370 and 460 kilometers, or between 200 and 250 nautical miles, also at an inclination of 51.6 degrees. Haven-1 has about 45 cubic meters of habitable volume and can support a 4-person crew. A typical mission will last about 10 days. For comparison, the Harmony module on the ISS, where visiting crews dock and enter the space station on the US side, has about 70 cubic meters of habitable volume. Inside the Haven-1, you'll find a sleek white design with paneling mimicking light wooden slats. Design influence comes from folks like Peter Russell Clark, a renowned designer who helped influence the look of products and facilities at Apple.
This is a crew-centric spacecraft, right? We want to make it comfortable for astronauts to live and work in space. If you think about ISS and all the space stations that came before, including the Russian stations and Skylab, right? They were pretty utilitarian. As we saw new spacecraft come online, like Dragon, for example, it has a very aesthetic interior design. In that vein, that concept that we should make spacecraft that are pleasant to live and work in, that's kind of the goal that we had with Haven-1 here at Vast.
Drew Feustel knows a thing or two about what's important for astronauts living and working in space. He was a member of NASA's Astronaut Corps from 2000 until his retirement in July 2023.
And liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis.
He's a veteran of 3 space flights, including STS-125, the final shuttle mission to service the Hubble Space Telescope. During his 3rd mission, which launched in 2018, he became the commander of the space station during Expedition 56. Feustel would go on to serve as the deputy chief of the astronaut office beginning in 2020 and was named acting chief astronaut in November 2022. He says life is all about timing.
I left NASA in the middle of 2023 and was looking forward to opportunities to still engage in the space sector, human spaceflight, and it was fortunate that a former colleague that I worked with at NASA had recommended me to Vast because Vast was looking for astronauts with spaceflight experience, and they reached out to me, and I took a look at their architecture and the plan, the overall business plan as well, and it was really easy for me to say, this is a winning solution.
Back to the Haven-1 Experience Tour.
So behind this wall, that when they are not working and performing science, are our 10 mid-deck locker equivalent. And you can see here we have our 2 original partners. One is Yuri in Europe, providing a mid-deck locker payload. The other one is Redwire in the United States, providing their pillbox. This is actually, some of these have actually already been on the ISS. But in this, Redwire work with their customers on protein growth experiment. These pillbox go up on Dragon, and then the crew insert them in the mechanism here. The 2-week mission occur, and then they take them back down, fully processed on the Dragon back to Earth. And then this week, you also have the control app. This is actually the app we will have on Haven-1, an early version, where you have the alert, the data. You can control the temperature, you can control the lights. You can also see all the cameras we have around as a crew. and we have one over there, basically. So now, this is the new announcement from today, where we've announced our next 3 payload partner for Haven-1. The top one you can see here doing flower growth is Interstellar from France. The second one is Exobiosphere, doing medical processing in well and high throughput from Luxembourg. And the third one is a company called JAMS in Japan, which is the actual main gateway to the ISS via Japan. They are partners or integrated with JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, and they will also be putting a mid-deck locker on Haven-1.
Time out. You may have noticed that Hout only pointed out 5 customers with spots filled on these mid-deck lockers. The Haven-1 has room for up to 10 single mid-deck locker equivalent, or MLE, payload slots. In a graphic published in mid-April, VAST noted that 4 of the MLE spaces are reserved for partners related to the crew flying on board the Haven-1. That leaves just 1 MLE unspoken for. The payload rack also has the ability to accommodate double MLEs, which will receive double the accommodations of a single MLE payload. Customers can either opt to have their payloads launch when the Haven-1 does, or to have new payloads fly up on a future Crew Dragon mission. Here's what Hout had to say about how these first 5 were chosen. Time in.
It's a combination of, we think they are important research and science that are good for VAST and good for the customers that will be flying on VAST. It's also the credibility of the company. Our strategy is to work with as many people that have existing heritage on the ISS. Redwire is a clear example of that. And then it's a negotiation and agreeing to the pricing and so on, which we did, and signing a contract.
The company VAST was formed back in 2021 by Jeb McCaleb with the goal of creating an artificial gravity space station. It came against the backdrop of a competition for successors to the International Space Station. Axiom Space received a contract from NASA in January 2020, valued at up to $140 million for a station that would start building modules attached to the ISS. Though the order of assembly has changed since then. Nearly 2 years later, in December 2021, NASA signed 3 more Space Act agreements for free flyer space stations with Blue Origin, NanoRacks, and Northrop Grumman. Northrop Grumman would drop out of the competition in October 2023. VAST came along too late in the game to be part of this original round of awards. Fast forward to July 2023, and NASA announced a partnership with 7 U.S. companies for unfunded Space Act agreements. This new round included one for VAST to help further its Haven-1 and for larger space station modules. Those larger modules will make up the Haven-2 space station. That's VAST's bid to replace the ISS and will compete as part of the Phase 2 of NASA's Commercial Low Earth Orbit Development, or CLD, program. As part of the agency's overall efforts, NASA is supporting the design and development of multiple commercial space stations through funded and unfunded agreements using a 2-phase approach, the agency said in a statement to Spaceflight Now. During the first phase, NASA is assisting its commercial space station partners in the completion of preliminary design review, or greater level of design maturity, on their concepts for future commercial station and service offerings. The providers are on track to meet that goal, with some already beginning testing and manufacturing of key systems and elements. Back in the Haven-1 experience, we got a glimpse at VAST's next module.
So this room you have here is actually featured in Haven-2, where we are launching modules that are 5 meters longer and are launching on a Falcon Heavy with a stretch fairing. For Haven-1, we go from the room we were in to this area. All right, so we are now in the corridor section of Haven-1. So the key feature, if you turn around, will be the hatch. So the Dragon, the SpaceX provided docking adapter is on the other side. The crew will dock. There is a vestibule that they pressurize between the 2 hatches. The crew will open the Dragon hatch, and then they will see the other side of this hatch, and then they will open it and enter Haven-1.
Let's pause the tour again for a moment and focus on what Hout just said. In order to get to and from the Haven-1, VAST teamed up with SpaceX and its Crew Dragon spacecraft. It plans to conduct 4 10-day-long crewed missions to its Haven-1 space station over the course of its 3-year operating life. The first of these is set to take place after a roughly 45-day commissioning period with Haven-1 on orbit. The decision by VAST to choose SpaceX as its astronaut taxi service does make sense. Right now, the Crew Dragon is the only US-built spacecraft certified to ferry humans to and from the International Space Station. Plus, if you look at Vast's leadership team and advisors, SpaceX alumni make up half of those. In fact, creating a formal partnership with SpaceX was at the very top of the list when it came to trying to win a CLD contract from NASA, beginning with the Haven-1 demonstration.
The first thing we did is we went to SpaceX because we don't believe that you should design a space station without the visiting vehicle, in this case Dragon, their team, and working with us very collaboratively. It's actually an integrated system from a thermal point of view, from a life support point of view. They have to dock together. We have to keep the attitude. There's a lot of engineering detail and complexity. So you don't want to design your space station and then 6 months before you launch it, call the Dragon team to make sure they're okay.
Part of that synergy comes from SpaceX selling its passive docking adapter to Vast, and having SpaceX test the combination of the active adapter on Dragon and the passive Haven-1 adapter at SpaceX's facilities. This is also convenient since Vast's headquarters is located just about 15 miles away from SpaceX in Hawthorne, California. It was an important consideration since the International Space Station is the only thing to date that Dragon has ever docked to while on orbit. Right now, SpaceX is creating the flight-ready passive adapter that will attach to Haven-1 and will send it to Vast soon for integration.
They are the expert, right? They are doing it to the ISS. They know obviously the NASA standard. They have built the technology to do it. It's called Dragon Eye. They basically looked at Haven-1 and they said, hey, can you keep the attitude, the pointing to this tolerance? And we said we can. And then they are putting the reflectors on Haven-1. They are providing a docking adapter. And the whole approach and docking is really their responsibility, and we trust them because they have the experience in the system. So my understanding, it will be different than the ISS, and we are trusting our partner SpaceX to design it and operate it and perform it.
Hout described the multifaceted partnership with SpaceX during his main stage talk at the 40th Space Symposium.
We struck a launch partnership with SpaceX, so we have under contract the Falcon 9 launch vehicle reusable to launch the 14-ton Haven-1 module. We also have our contract 2 Dragon flight for 4 crew to Haven-1. And later, last year, we announced that we were the first space station company that SpaceX had agreed to provide Starlink laser connectivity, which will provide the crew and the payload gigabit connectivity on a space station, which has never been done before.
Back to the tour.
Here you can see actually another control screen that the crew can use to control key element of the space station. And then this is a narrow area because this is where we store all of the food, all of the consumables, also the trash, the wet trash storage that's exposed to vacuum in a container is all in this more dense area. And one of the key features that is here is our 4 sleeping berths. So each one of the crew members get their own dedicated sleeping berth with our inflatable sleep system. And there are 2 up there and 2 down there. And in the actual Haven-1, this won't be a transparent door. It will be, a foldable door that can provide the crew some privacy.
And I'm sure, in consultation with the astronauts that you have on staff, they probably had a lot of notes, as far as how the bedding should work, format, size, all that. What were some of the key takeaways from those conversations as you were developing the sleep quarters?
So the process we have is our lead astronaut, Drew Foystel. We also our astronaut advisor, Garrett Reisman, work with 2 of our team, industrial design, and then our human factor team. The human factor team are engineers that are worrying about all of these human element in Haven-1. And so one of the things that astronauts recount is that most people like to get really wedged into some sort of area on the ISS and have some pressure on them to sleep. And that's not something I've experienced, having not gone to space yet, but it's something that our astronauts have experienced. And they say most people like to feel some tension and to feel enclosed. So we designed our sleep system, the Vast Haven sleep system, which is a cover that goes over you. You can see a version there. You can check it out on our booth as well. And then you can inflate it with air and adjust the pressure that applies to you as it pushes you towards the hull of Haven-1. So you can feel or have a feeling of, simulated gravity, I guess, for your sleep.
Vast is gearing up to launch Haven-1 in May 2026, and it's taking important steps to get ready for that. Later this year, they'll launch an uncrewed technology demonstration satellite called Haven Demo. It's undergoing integration and final checkouts before its mission begins. Meanwhile, the various subsystems on a qualification version of Haven-1 have been coming together over the course of 2024, from the primary structure to the 6 control moment gyroscopes that will help maintain the Haven-1's attitude while in low Earth orbit. All of that led up to weeks of the primary structure qualification campaign at Vast's facilities in Mojave, California. It was an important campaign that helped clarify and refine their timeline. It shifted plans from launching in 2025 to instead target launch 1 year from now.
I mean, it's been amazing. We announced the Haven-1 program in May 23, so we're about 2 years in and 1 year left. And a lot of the early days has been to build the amazing engineering team and have responsible engineers and facilities to put us in a position to build Haven-1 and launch it. And so through that, we've grown now to about 800 team members. We're adding 50 every month. We're going to cap out at 1,000 for when we fly. The design is for example, the primary structure is obviously complete. We finished our qualification article. We are testing it. We proved it. We are now machining and welding the flight primary structure. So we've locked the design, we've released these drawings to our manufacturing CNC shop, and we are welding it with a view to start integration and complete the flight primary structure by the end of July. So a lot more visible progress. We are just finishing our control room now. The team is there, everybody's focused and locked in on it. And we're getting it done, so it feels great. It feels easier every day than it was when we had less people, less facility, and maybe more time, but still a lot to do.
Beyond testing in Mojave, Vast will also need to conduct a series of environmental tests on the flight version of Haven-1. For that, they need facilities at the Neil Armstrong Test Facility, managed by NASA's Glenn Research Center in Sandusky, Ohio.
We are testing every single piece of Haven-1. Every sub-assembly is a primary structure at our facility ourselves with vibe table, thermal labs. We have large test stand at our Mojave facility. But once it's fully integrated, once it's a 14-ton vehicle with the full inside and outside and every system, we still want to test it as an integrated vehicle. Now, there are 2 critical tests, a vibration test and a thermal vacuum test. And there's basically no other facility in the world that could test such a big object as Haven-1. So firstly, it's relief that we have the slot. We booked it, we signed the contract, because there's not many other places we can do it. And also the contract was actually sponsored in some way, supported by NASA, so that we actually have priority over other programs. I don't think DoD, but other commercial programs. So it's been great, and we look forward to ship out Haven-1 once it's fully integrated at the end of this year and perform that testing at the NASA Center in Q1 next year for, if everything goes well, launch in May 26.
One other lingering item is naming the 4 people who will be the first to train for a mission on board Haven-1. That crew would launch to the space station no earlier than late June 2026.
The big next announcement that you should expect from us at some point soon is when we announce the first crew to go to Haven-1. That's, our goal is to secure it with mostly space agencies, international space agencies, because Haven-1 is designed to be a proof point for NASA that we can work with them. So that's our ideal customer base, and we are in negotiation with multiple international space agencies, and can't wait to eventually reveal who the crew is. We also have interest in negotiation with private individuals, but our approach is that these missions, even though from private individuals, should be to perform important science and work, not to be tourists. And none of the people that we talk to want to be tourists. They want to work with the payload and the Haven-1 lab facility we have.
All this work being put into Haven-1 serves as a proof of concept for the Haven-2 space station. NASA intends to publish a draft request for proposal for Phase 2 of the CLD program by the end of June, with the final RFP coming out during the 4th quarter of fiscal year 2025. The agency will soon enter a second phase of its efforts, during which NASA will procure services and certify 1 or more space stations, NASA said in a statement. When the International Space Station nears the end of operations, the agency plans to transition to a new low Earth orbit commercial space station to continue leveraging microgravity benefits for science and future exploration. Feustel believes that the way that they're approaching the construction of a space station puts them in a competitive position as NASA nears its decision.
In my personal opinion, I think the opinion of the company is it's not a giant leap. That's why we're building this spacecraft. Our vision for what CLD or Haven-1 is, which would be a successor to ISS, is essentially the technology that's built into the spacecraft would be applied to that next vehicle. We could stretch the diameter, we could stretch the length, but we have all that capability and technology in-house, so there isn't really a leap for us. The architecture of this is that every vehicle that is built after this, and even this one on its own, is its own spacecraft. It doesn't rely on another spacecraft, aside from the crew vehicle that brings the crew members up to it. Each spacecraft has its own power, it has its own thermal control, it has its own ECLSS system. We can run with open loop ECLSS just like we are on this system, because we have the capacity to launch those consumables with us. Haven-2 could be the same way, that we could start out with open loop ECLSS and then go to closed loop systems with higher technology and TRL as we advance the modules and the number of modules that are attached. So single docking port on this one, but as we move to dual docking ports, then that gives us flexibility to add modules, remove modules, add cargo ships, a lot of options there with what we can do with the architecture.
Well, the key is that there's never ever been a commercial space station. So that's a space station that is more affordable, is designed differently than what has been done before. But it's also one that has none of the restriction that comes with going to a government-owned space station. And so we're really excited to see what businesses will do with us, and all of the possibility for commercialization, whether it's in payload, in media, and also just generally more freedom for people to go there to do what they'd like to do. So we're excited to see what these missions will be. That's never happened before. All prior space stations were either Russian or American government owned or Chinese now, but no private company has ever owned and operated a crewed space station. And one of the notes is that our Haven-1 will have Starlink laser internet, gigabit connectivity, with actually even lower latency than if you were at home, because you are actually in space and one of the leg of the transmission for the latency. So we're super excited to see, either over Wi-Fi or for our payload for the customer device, they will be able to call FaceTime home, they'll be able to do anything they would do at home on their device on Haven-1. And that's also going to be new and feel very connected. And we've seen some of that in some of the recent SpaceX Dragon mission, the Fram-2 mission, and we're excited to see how it will be on a space station for the first time.
Reporting from Colorado Springs, Colorado, Will Robinson Smith for Spaceflight Now.